Sometimes all it takes to get new creative ideas is to take another, perhaps more careful look at our jewelry findings and embrace them for what they are rather than what they aren't. Today I'll bring you through that design process with me. Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another jewelry making video at keepsakecrafts.net. So recently I put these earrings into my remake bin dish place on my work table. I've got a bunch of them, pieces of jewelry that I want to remake. I love this arrangement of colors, the turquoise and orange beads together, but what I don't like is the way these strands kind of splay out from the bead cap. The cap really is too small for this design. These beads just take up too much space. But what I need for this kind of a design is a cap like this one that's a bit more solid, because there's some engineering in there, wires and things, that needs to be hidden in order for the design to work well. And so I just need to find some bigger caps. But I was looking to make a similar pair of earrings, and when I went through my stash, I only had caps like these. Either very shallow ones, which aren't going to work to hide components, or ones with lots of holes and openings. These are all really pretty, but they weren't going to work for what I wanted. So it occurred to me that rather than fighting these qualities in the findings, perhaps I should find a way of embracing them in my jewelry design. What I came up with was this design, which is simply using those open spaces in your findings to dangle strands of beads, rather than having them come from the center, like on these. And because the inside is so open, it was a great place to actually showcase a bead, rather than trying to hide something. I kind of love the way the color of this frosted bead comes through. I kind of wanted to use these. I thought they would be really pretty, but they have 15 spaces around, and I thought 15 strands of beads, well, that would be 30 for a pair of earrings, was more than I could handle, and I couldn't figure out a way. If it was an odd number, if it was 14 or 16, I would have alternated, but with an odd number, I just couldn't figure out a way of making it work. Maybe you can, though. So let me show you how easy it is to put these together. Just little strands of beads held on with crimps, and then I put a longer strand right in the middle with a little flower bead. Super simple. The first thing I did was I picked out some check fire polish beads. These are Navy Vega Luster, and I'm sorry the tag fell off of this strand. I will try my best to find a link to this color, but use whatever you have. These are 3mm check fire polish, and to make a pair of earrings just like mine, you'll need just one strand of each. And then I also have some of the same color. It doesn't have to be, but I kind of like the way it went. The navy, this is actually pretty close, nebulous luster. Looks about the same to me. But these are 4mm check fire polish. I also have a 10mm bead, but that will depend really on the size of finding that you have. That kind of works in here. They spread open, so if you had a bigger one, that would work. But it kind of worked perfectly. Oh, look at that. Okay. Why is it stuck? Okay. It kind of worked perfectly in this. I just, like I said, love the way that fills that. Get some crimps and some bead stringing wire. You don't need anything particularly heavy because each one is only going to hold a few beads. You can start off actually by just leaving the wire right on the spool. Slide on a crimp. Slide it through one of your loops. And slide the wire back through the crimp. Now don't be tempted to grab this and pull it so that you minimize the amount of bead stringing wire you use by making this short end shorter. I did that, and what happened on a couple of these, I actually have replaced it, but that action of pulling ended up being kind of like making curling ribbon. You know, when you take your scissors and go along the ribbon and make it curly, and it actually curled way too much, and I couldn't get the curl out of it, and I had to replace one of these. So just leave that extra wire there. Don't worry about conserving it quite so much. Since I'm doing a lot of crimpings, I've got 8 strands on each of these caps, such as 16. That means 32 crimps, so I am using my one-step crimpers because it just makes life so much easier. So you just get your crimper on there and crimp. As always, give it a tug and test and make sure it's not coming apart. And trim that shorter wire. Now is the time you want to decide how long you want your beaded pieces to be. So once you've decided that, and this is about 1 inch long I have here, I will cut this about 2 inches below that. Leave yourself plenty. This is not the time to use gold-plated wire that's expensive and you really want to conserve. I tried cutting these shorter and it just made life so much more difficult. And with so many crimps, you want to make them all as easy as possible. So cut it nice and long. When you have them all done, you'll have this kind of spidery looking thing with a bit of wire on a crimp dangling from each one. Now do be careful when you're doing this. It depends on the design of your cap. It's very easy on this design for these to sneak off to the side and you look at it, or it actually looks like underneath, and you don't even see it. Oh, I haven't gotten that one yet. Doesn't it look empty? And so you put another one on there and then realize that it already had one and now it has 2, and boo-hoo, you have to cut one off, which stinks because there's a lot of these to do. You don't want to have to do extras. So once you have all of those on there, then you can string on your beads. So for each of my strands, I used 3 of each color, but instead of just alternating a pattern, I did it more of like it gradates from the dark to the light. But do whatever makes you happy, whatever colors. Just string on 1, 2. So many of you have told me that you really enjoy my tutorials, and I'm so happy to hear that. It just thrills me when you tell me that my videos have been helpful to you, helped you solve a problem, encouraged you in your creativity, because that's really my goal, is to encourage you. If you do enjoy my videos, you might want to get even more than what I put up on this YouTube channel. My patrons actually get up to 2 bonus tutorials every month, and you can check out the details at patreon.com. So there's my pattern. Do whichever one you like. Then add another crimp. Now this part was a little tricky for me because I needed to find the right size crimps. This is pretty fine wire, and I needed to use small crimps. I had some bigger ones kicking around. Oh, actually, I didn't use those for the bottom. That's right. I used these crimp tubes, which were kind of perfect for this. I don't usually have good luck with crimp tubes, but they worked well for this. I forgot about that. Let's just take a look at this again. I like using the one-step crimper here because it gives a really nice, tidy crimp. Except for that one. Don't look at that one. So you might want to do a little experimenting with the crimps that you have on hand on some scrap wire before you try doing it on your actual earring and then have to undo work that you've already done, because that's no fun. So just test it out and make sure that it makes a secure connection. Now for this, you want these beads to be right up against that top crimp, and you want the bottom crimp to hold them there. You don't have to make it really tight, but you don't have to pull it. I'm pulling on this and making it really tight. Just loosen it the tiniest bit so that they dangle, but then press your finger up against the side of the tool before you squeeze. Because if you don't have that tension there, pressing it, what can happen is that it will kind of jump out of your hands and the crimp will end up down here and be too long. And then you'll have to take your pliers and like try to nibble that crimp off without cutting the wire, and reapply the crimp. Ask me how I know. It's such a pain. So then you just take your wire cutters, trim right up against that, and repeat to add all of the strands. The last thing to do is this bit in the center. I chose to use these sweet little glass flowers. These are check glass 8mm check glass flowers in the color Purple Opal, and you can see they were from Dollar Bead Box. And I just think they're so cute. But other things you can use. You can use charms of any sort. I keep this acorn with the squirrel because it seems like someday I'll use them together. But wouldn't it be really cute for a fall pair of earrings to have a little acorn dangles? Or little bird charms, or any motif that you have. Little bells. These are from a really old piece of jewelry that a friend of a friend had in a stash. I kind of took them apart. I think these are from Africa, but they're really cool. So think outside the box with this charm. It does not have to be the little flower. That just happened to be the thing that I thought looked best here. But can't you picture a little bird dangling down? I think that would be adorable. I've got here some... Oh, making a mess. Oh well. Some nice long eye pins. And at this point, you may need to do a little bit of testing. This is where I'm going to use the larger of the check glass beads. You could use the same size. I just kind of like the way it looks in there. And I'm going to find, or at least make, my eye pin straight. Maybe go in the bag and find one that isn't quite so wonky. You'll have to do a little testing to figure out what works best, and this is best done once you've added all of your bead dangles. So this is what I found worked for mine. Got my 4 check fire polish, then my 10mm bead. Make sure it goes through the correct hole up top. And look at it, and yeah, it's really best to take a look once you have all your dangles on, and I can see that this will come down just a little below, and then my little flower will dangle on, so that'll be perfect. At this point, I'm going to use my round nose pliers to make the loop. I'll cut this to about 3/8 of an inch. Bend that back. Make a nice centered loop. Add my earring finding. For the flower, I simply have some little ball head pins. You could use a really decorative head pin here. I do like to put the flower on its own separate piece down here. I mean, I could have strung it on the whole length onto a head pin, but then this would be pretty stiff, but I like having it separate so that it has a really nice little dangle factor. Because this wire for this little ball head pin is pretty fine, I think it's probably 22, 24 gauge, I just did a wrapped loop. If you want to learn how to do those, I've done a whole video on making wrapped loops, and I'll link to that. You just add this down here, and you're done. I mean, most of the work is in the repetition of adding all of those beads and crimps, and then you have a really cute pair of earrings that embraces the fact that your findings are see-through and perforated. And I really like the way these dangle down evenly all the way around, which was a little bit more tricky to achieve in these. I'll have a link to this video too, but I do recommend if you make this, make sure your bead cap is big enough. If you're interested in the supplies that I used, check out my blog post, which is linked in the upper right of this video and also down in the description box. At my blog post, I always have a complete supply list with as many product links as I can find for you. Thanks so much for watching. Happy creating. Bye-bye.